Giants fans, thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Only a Giant. We have a special guest today, so we're going to kind of just introduce him right away here and kind of get things going. So I'd like to introduce Scott, who's a longtime friend of mine here, big Bengals fan. So thought would be a unique opportunity to get his perspective on things. So Scott, welcome, man.
Thanks. I'm actually a little upset that I just yelled "Who Dey" because everyone listening probably already hates me. But
Yeah, probably.
whatever. I only get to do it every 30 years or so. So
Now I got to be honest with you. I'm a little confused by that because wasn't that a Saints thing at one point?
I don't know. I mean, they say "Who Dat." I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not
Started hearing it and I was like, is this the Saints? What's going on here?
I don't know enough about the lore of the Who D's, I guess, but
Who
I don't know.
D's, I
It's
like
something. I mean, it's better than a really really long chant. It's quick. I mean,
Quick
I
and
saw,
easy.
this, with everything going on with the Bengals actually playing well. I've seen a little more and more people wearing their stuff around, and it's something you can just yell to someone in the parking lot. It's a little easier than like JETS, Jets, Jets. It's
Ugh.
just longer.
Yeah, hey,
So.
that's a valid point there. So, obviously, if you've listened to me in the past, and I know you kind of know this, Scott. So we'll start off with a little beer of the episode, I guess, if you will. So, what are you drinking? What do you got?
All right, so I got it's from Myers Creek Brewing Company right here in Syracuse. I guess essentially it says brewed in Cazenovia, but there's a new brewery right near my house. It's Oregon Fruit is my stage name. It is a mango, strawberry, pineapple, and lemon sour ale. So
Interesting.
I don't know if get that up there.
Yeah,
Pretty
okay.
nice looking.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't had it yet, so.
I'm not a huge sour person, so I'll be interested to see what you think of this.
Yeah, my wife went there and she picked up 3 4-packs for me. One was an IPA, one was one of the sours I mentioned, and she grabbed another one. So 2 sours out of 3 is a bit much, but
Take a sip. Tell me what you think.
Yeah,
Have you had this before first?
No, I haven't. This is the first time I had it. Yeah, first thoughts are it's pretty genuine sour. I'm not sure I can, recognize the mango, strawberry, pineapple, and lemon in there. Like I can't tell which is which, but there's definitely some fruity feels in there. And
is there anything that's like smacking you in the face, or is it like just straight sour, and that's really what's?
No, it almost reminds me of like a ghost, like the more like sea salty, soury type of thing. Yeah, it's not. There are some beers that I've had, some sours where you're almost puckering your lips, but yeah, this one's good. Like it.
And that's what's turned me off with sours a little bit because I've had a lot of sours that straight taste like vinegar, and it's just like I don't want to drink this.
Right? Yeah.
So.
No.
All right.
Vinegar beer has not caught on yet, fortunately.
No, it has not.
Tried everything else, but.
So my beer, Scott, you may remember this beer, and if you listened to my last episode, you may already know what it is. But it's a little bit of a blast from the past, from World of Beer days, back when we used to go there a lot. So I have Chocolate Manifesto, which is a stout.
Yeah.
I don't know. Remember if you drink it a lot? I know Bot and I did a lot.
Yeah, that's a you and Bot type of drink. Yeah. The stouts and porters are not our bag.
Yep. But I'm gonna open this up here, and I mean, unfortunately, I have already had this, but it's a special beer. I found it at Fair Deli Market. I don't know if you remember me telling you about that.
Yeah, I heard it in the last podcast. You mentioned that.
And I haven't seen this anywhere other than the big bottles. So the fact that they had it there was amazing. Made me very happy. So that's me.
All right.
So I'm gonna take a little drink here and
do it up.
Yeah, man, it's just thick. It's just it's very, very thick. It's very chocolatey.
Right.
Made by Flying Monkey, which I think we talked about too. But yeah, it's a good one. It's definitely not one that you want to have 2 or 3 in a night. That's like you have one and maybe you just go to sleep.
Right. That's the good thing about
10%.
Those thicker ones like that. You drink them a little slower too.
Yep. Yeah. But a good thing with this one is like a lot of the like heavier IPAs. The minute they start getting warm, you kind of like lose its luster a little bit. Okay. This will maintain at least a little bit because it's more subtle, more thick. I guess I don't know.
Okay.
Cool. So let's get right into it. I guess we did the beer. Really at this point what I want to do. Obviously, we'll talk about the Bengals, but I find it very interesting, and I've done this on some previous episodes before, where I really like to get an outsider's perspective on what they see from the Giants, what it looks like to be um, a fan of the Giants from the outside, and what do you see? So I guess let's just start off with, we'll kind of look at it in a broad range of looking at the last roughly 4 years, 5 years, whatever it was, with Gettleman being the GM for the Giants. And, it starts off with Shermer, Judge. What have you seen, and what's your kind of take on the Giants issues? Was there ever any hope?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think this is a good exercise because I know that, fans of a certain, team or whatever, kind of, you get that perspective of being a fan and you don't really see what outside people see necessarily. And because I do live in Syracuse, obviously the Giants games are on and I don't watch them as religiously, but, I've seen quite a few of the games over the last, 4 years you're talking about. And I guess, I mean, obviously when Eli's career comes to an end, and he had a great career for you guys, obviously, you'll take 2 Super Bowls any day.
Yep.
So, his career ends and, you pass the torch off. And that's kind of where I think the trouble starts. And it isn't necessarily like I want to have faith in Daniel Jones. Admittedly, I didn't know a ton about him coming out of the draft, but I remember I was at your house when they did draft him, and I remember it was like, the general thought was a little bit early in the draft for Jones to go. And for what it's worth, I do also remember that later that same draft, the Redskins, then Redskins, took Curtis was there, and they ended up taking Dwayne Haskins, and he's just playing out of the league for the most part. I mean, I think he's third string
He's
somewhere.
with the Steelers right now,
Right.
but he can't beat out what's his name, pretty boy there. I can't stand him.
Mason Rudolph.
Mason Rudolph, yeah, I cannot stand him. But apparently he can't beat out Mason Rudolph, and
yeah, that's not great. Or I mean, if you couldn't beat out Ben this year, I mean, to be fair, he was obviously going to finish the season. But yeah, for what it's worth, Jones is at least still out there fighting. And I think it's been a tough shake for him. The first couple of years, and I mean, we'll probably get into this a little more when we talk about the Daboll hire, but the first couple of years, at least as far as from I don't know, I want to say metrics, maybe that's not the right word, perspective, his career and Josh Allen's are actually similar in the fact that they both seemed like they tried to make too much happen too often in the first couple of years, and that led to a lot of bad decisions, mainly fumbles and interceptions. I remember, because my father's a Bills fan, so I see a lot of those games too. And first couple of years, Allen would always, after the play, whatever the initial play is breaks down, he's trying to make something happen. And Jones has done that too. And that's when the first couple of years, he starts throwing something off his back foot, 40 yards, and it's intercepted, or some guy comes up from behind and knocks the ball out. And obviously, Jones did those same things as well. So I think that it starts with you got to figure out the quarterback situation, because if I'm looking at your team this past season specifically, it feels like you were even though your offense was dreadful toward the end of the year, you still kind of were in a lot of the games, just hanging around, one of those where if you I mean, and I know Jones was injured for quite a few of those games as well, but if you just got a nice drive, your defense would get some, momentum, maybe get another stop, and then you could go down and kick a game-winning field goal. That could have happened in any game, it feels like. But, this year in particular, injury, obviously, at all of your offensive positions is kind of another issue. But yeah, the last 4 years you're talking, it just feels like it's been trying to pass the torch and unsuccessfully so. And I think the offensive line, obviously, this year is the biggest thing. And
yeah, that was one of the things with Gettleman that he preached straight from the start, and I think he made attempts to fix the offensive line, but I mean that's still to me that's the biggest issue. I think Jones, you look at Jones, and I'm not sitting here saying that he's anything anymore at this point. I don't know. He's a very very unknown commodity right now. But for me, man, the offensive line, and I've heard other coaches say this, not me personally, but something I've read or seen on Twitter or something like that, saying like this year the offensive line was like historically bad. Like not even just bad, just historically bad. Like they've never
Right.
seen an offensive line so bad before. And I think like if you go back to the beginning of the year, like Jones was playing pretty good ball. He was making plays. He had that kind of one-handed catch that he had on the sideline. There's talent there.
Right.
The offensive line is to me is the biggest issue. Now I'm not saying that you fix the offensive line and you fix Jones. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that you fix the offensive line. You give Jones a year to see what he is.
Yeah, you give that fair shot that it feels like he just hasn't had.
He has. You're
For
right.
and I mean, if you're when you come in as a rookie or second year guy, I mean, there's going to be growing pains, and you accept that. But like this year, this was his third year, right?
Um,
I believe it was, but
One, he had two with Shermer. Three was the lockout year, so this was year four.
oh, four. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say the year three. Well, going into this year, I thought that this was kind
Maybe
of
I'm wrong. I don't know.
I, yeah, I could obviously be wrong with that
2019
too,
draft,
but
I believe he was from. So
yeah, because Burrow was 2020, so this would have been his third year.
okay, yeah, yep. So going into year
Going
four, that
into
makes
year
sense.
three, it's
For
like
the
that's
50 the
where,
option too. Yeah,
yeah,
yep.
that's where you really want to see that improvement. Because again, they were clearly in kind of a rebuild mode when he first, got the first year or two, and then year three, which was this year, you go out and you spend the money for Galladay, and you get Saquon back, and I know in the preseason he was still up in the air with
Yep.
his injury, obviously a bad injury last year, but it's just if your offensive line is historically bad and your weapons are all injured, which are I still think Kenny Galladay when healthy, especially going into last year when healthy, I see him as a top 15 talent at wide receiver in the league. I think he can do things that not a lot of guys can do. The contested catches and everything, and I think that, I don't remember who the writer was, but I read an article by a Yahoo writer, in regards to the Galladay signing before this past season. And essentially what he was saying was that it felt like a bad fit for Jones because of Galladay's play style. And maybe that's true, but a big part of it is the fact that Galladay was hurt the entire preseason and didn't get any practice time with Jones. And the other issue, and I think that this writer, I didn't give him enough credit for it in the beginning, but I think the other issue is that like Jones is, being his third year now, trying to focus on not turning the ball over, because I know that that's what had been weighing on his mind, I'm sure, after those first couple of years.
Hmm.
And Galladay isn't a receiver that gets space. He doesn't separate. He
Exactly. Yep.
is, and so what he needed was for Jones to see the one-on-one and just throw it anyway. Just throw it over my way. I'll come down with it.
Hmm.
But Jones didn't have that trust with him because of the preseason. They
And he's never had a wide receiver like that either.
right, yeah, that's not a skill set that the other wide receivers have had. And they've had some, I think Shepard is a very good wide receiver. How long is he under contract for?
Well, he just signed a contract extension last year, but he's kind of in a situation now where he could very well end up being a cap casualty. There's his contract. I think if we end up cutting him, saves like 5 or 6 mil or 7 mil or something like that. And we're hurting pretty bad right now for um, cap space. So
Sure, yeah.
wouldn't completely shock me if
I
he
mean,
got cut
yeah,
or traded.
having got Galladay, Tony, and Slayton and stuff, I feel like you have other options there, so it would make sense. But yeah, I don't know. I do feel bad for Jones because going to New York, getting drafted early and going to New York, there was a lot of fans that were just angry to begin with, and just his first couple of years, I feel like people would give him a pass, but year three, you hope that that step is taken, and then, like I said, just between the horrible line, injuries to all the skill players essentially,
Yep.
and Jones himself, obviously.
And then
You
throw
know,
into like, everyone loves to hate Gettleman, and kind of by association, that's going to fall on Jones too, because
sure,
of that.
right. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I can see that so they have I think I heard this on another podcast or something. I'm not going to advertise for them. You should only be listening to this podcast. Um, but do the Giants have the 5th and 7th picks this year? Is that
Yep,
what they
yep.
have? So, I mean, this is a tough one because again, it's like that's 2 picks you could use to really address needs going forward, but that doesn't help Jones this year. Like if they're going to stick with him, it's unlikely, even if they got, just let's pretend that the first 4 picks weren't linemen and they pick up linemen with the 5th and 7th pick and get 2 of the best linemen coming out of college. They're going to take some time to really start to gel and get better. And that's going to take a year that Daniel Jones probably doesn't have.
Yeah, you're right on that, but also I feel like the previous coaching staff, and I don't even know that this is a slight towards Garrett or if it was just the offense in general or if it was I don't know, but I feel like they just never set him up for success. Like things that were working in our offense, it seemed like oh, we have success with this pass over the middle or something over to Engram, and then you just never see it the rest of the game again.
Right. Yeah.
Like there was no, it just never seemed like they set him up for success. And that's where, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but that's where I at least think we have the coaching staff this year to do something like that.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah, it definitely, it feels like like if you have a healthy Saquon and a healthy Galladay, and even like Tony showed some real signs. Like I don't know,
Yeah,
when I remember, I think it was the Saints game was the first game that I remember seeing Tony really like bust out. I'm trying to remember if it was that game or the game after. I think it was that game that he had like 7 for 78 or something. But then the game after, that's when Galladay went down and whatever, and it was Tony, and he went off for 10 for
Yeah, I think it was the
170.
Saints, and then maybe it was Dallas, or maybe it was vice versa. No,
Yeah,
I think it was Saints because that's a game that Saquon had that long catch for a touchdown,
yeah, and
and
they
then
went
the
to
next
overtime and he
game is
won.
when Galladay went down, and then Barkley on like his first carry stepped
Right.
on someone's ankle,
Oh yeah, I remember
and then
seeing that. Yeah,
rolled
his
his
ankle,
ankle.
yeah, it's
Yep,
huge.
yep. And then that
Um,
was a game that Tony really went off, but then got ejected because he threw a punch.
yeah, I mean, I think like watching him just, no jerseys, whatever. It reminded me of Odell, just the way that when he caught the ball, guys were like trying to touch him. Like it was hard to touch him.
Yeah,
He might not be like, I mean, I'm not sure about this, but he might not be an amazing route runner yet. He might have some things he still needs to learn. But if he has the ball and people have to try to touch him, not just tackle him, but even touch him, it seems like it's going to be pretty difficult. So I'd be pretty excited to have him,
yeah.
yeah, on the
He's someone
roster.
that he just needs to stay healthy and hopefully he can keep his head right off the field
Yeah, well,
because he is very talented. I think he's a decent route runner. I wouldn't sit here and say he's the best route runner or anything like that. But he's had some pretty crisp routes last year that I remember. Specifically one on Trayvon Diggs, who he just toasted. He had some pretty good routes last year, but he needs to definitely improve that. And any rookie's going to come out of the league is going to have to
right.
improve that. So.
Yeah, especially wide receiver is one of the toughest positions for a rookie to come into because not only do you have to learn every route, every play in the playbook, but you have to gain some type of rapport with the quarterback. And he wasn't even starting for the first 5 games or whatever. It wasn't even really in the
he didn't
mix
play
too
a
much.
lot to start,
Yeah.
especially
So
in preseason and granted there was some injury stuff going on, so that's his biggest thing. He needs to stay healthy. But that was the whole Giants last year,
right, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah, like you said, Jones is in an unfortunate situation, but especially because I kind of doubt they're going to go out and either spend a bunch of money or make trades to shore up that offensive line that way. It seems like they're going to probably go the draft route, which means the guys you take aren't going to be great right away. Probably they're going to need a year or two to really get into their own. And like I said, I kind of feel like if you're a Giants fan, you're looking at this as Jones's like really just prove it year. This
Yep.
like you be a even like top 12 quarterback? Like if you can do that this year and then hopefully improve because Dable's offense is going to be something that I'm sure over time he's going to get even better and better at, as we've seen with the other quarterback in New York.
Yep.
Well, not Zach Wilson, but the other one.
The other.
Yeah. Um, But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. Like I think that they still, even last year when their offense was dreadful, the defense still always seems to play hard for the Giants. Like it's rare for them to put up someone to put up 40. And I'm sure there were a couple games where they were just definitely out of it, but in general, it felt like if they could just do something offensively, the other team was going to get a little nervous, which is a lot to say for a team that finished with the fifth worst record in the league. So
Yeah, the defense started the year kind of rough, but they kind of turned it around. I would say maybe halfway through the year, and then a lot of a lot of the way the defense was playing was like bend don't break, because I just think the offense was just so bad that maybe they were trying to keep their defense somewhat not dead, dead tired,
right.
rotating a lot, not bringing a lot of pressure. I don't know though. I didn't love how the defense played last year. I don't like this bend don't break style that the Giants played. But I also wonder if that was two things: offense being so bad, and Judge kind of having his hand in there too, because he's just a conservative coach in general. It seems like so. He's not seeming to be willing, or wasn't willing, to attack and
Sure.
send any type of exotic blitzes or anything like that. And maybe they just didn't have that. I don't know, but I would have been happy had Graham stayed, but we'll get into that in a little bit as well. So in general, looking at the Giants the last 4 years under Gettleman, with Shermer, with Judge, it almost seemed like there was a shift in New York, where it kind of went from like the Giants being the main team in New York, because obviously the Bills were always kind of the Bills. They never really could get out of
Sure.
their own way. Same thing with the Jets. Like even the years that the Jets did
They
okay,
butt they butt fumbled everything
they were
away.
still exactly they were still the Jets. So it almost seems like, and I hate to admit this, but obviously where I am here in Syracuse, and where you are, um, there's a huge Bills following here, and maybe we see it a little bit more. But it doesn't almost seem like there's a shift in New York, kind of shifting over to Buffalo as being like kind of the more dominant team.
I mean, yeah, from an on the field perspective, I mean, and it does come back to pretty easily. You can point to the quarterback at this point. I
And
mean,
wins, I guess. I mean, it's so
well,
easy to
yeah,
say that, when one team's losing and one team's winning, but
right. I mean, I just think you look at like when you got a guy like Josh Allen, and so this was his fourth year. Um, I mean, they're going to have him for another 10, 12, 15 years, whatever. I mean, he does play a bruising style of quarterback, but he's just so big that it's hard to imagine. Just like kind of like Cam Newton, I feel like the only thing that can really slow him down is his feet. It doesn't like, a lot of quarterbacks take some heavy hits to the shoulders and upper body, and
mhm.
you worry that they're going to be down for a bit. Josh Allen, like you're worried about the defender when he runs into someone. So yeah, I mean, there obviously are a lot of more Bills fans in our area, just because Central New York
Yep.
area, rather than I'm sure obviously the New York City area is still mainly Giants and some Jets in there as well, obviously. But yeah, it feels like the Bills are kind of here to stay. Feels like they got. I mean, it'll be interesting to see with Dable gone how that offense comes together. But I mean, I kind of imagine whoever steps in is going to follow in those footsteps, and really just let Allen continue to develop. I have to imagine he's pretty close to his ceiling, because when he's right, he's playing just, like that Kansas City game, obviously. He's playing as good a quarterback as you can possibly. Actually, the game before Kansas City
Yeah.
against New England, and that's against New England, the number 2 defense in the entire league this year. Just didn't make a mistake the entire game. And yeah, it's pretty incredible to see what's going on there. And I think, like you said, the Giants, they started the rebuild, and it feels like it's taken a bit longer. But with the division they're in, I mean, while there are certainly Dallas, had a great record this year, I don't think they're a complete team. And Philly, I'm not sold on Hurts just yet, and I'm not
Same.
sure if Philly is either because there's talk of Deshaun Watson and everything going there. And so, I mean, he deserves to keep playing. But and then obviously, Washington, it feels like, Washington, the one thing, sorry to get off on the tangent here, but
It's okay.
the one thing about Washington, you hear a lot of people talking about, their year being disappointing. And a big part of that is their defense was so horrific
Yeah,
early
it
on in
was.
the year, and they were supposed to be a very, very good defense. But the second thing is, like, people kind of forget, like, they went into the year, Fitzpatrick was their quarterback. That's what
Hmm.
was exciting. Now, obviously, Fitzpatrick is going to have games where he throws 4 interceptions, but in general, with Gibson and McLaurin and stuff, they and Thomas, they had, they could have had a nice explosive offense to go with what should have been a great defense, and that kind of faltered. So, and there's question marks there too. So I think the Giants, there's a path for them to to take that first step toward getting back up to the upper echelon. But right now, yeah, Buffalo in New York, Buffalo, it's hard to argue that they're not one of the top 4 teams probably for the next 5 years, unless there's some drastic changes.
Yeah, when they brought over Sean McDermott, I loved that hire, and I was like, man, that's such a good hire. Obviously, I didn't really know much about Brandon Bean or kind of any of the other people that he brought over, but it really seems like he's at least building the team the right way. And you kind of got to hope that, I guess, maybe using this to piggyback into the new New York Bills, the New York Giants. You kind of have to hope that Daboll learned a little bit from Sean McDermott on the right way to build a team, and the right players that you're looking for. And obviously that'll come with some collaboration from the new GM as well. But I guess let's kind of transition this over to the new New York Giants. 2022 New York Giants, is that what we're going to call
Yeah,
them now?
I suppose.
So I guess we'll start off with the GM, Joe Sheen. Do you know much about him? Do you have any insights on him? I know.
I do not. No.
No, okay. I mean, young guy. Worked in the Carolina Panthers system for a little bit. Actually, started as a scout there right out of grad school, I think. Um, Worked with McDermott a little bit. Worked with Brandon Bean, and Brandon Bean ended up bringing him over to Buffalo with him as the assistant, and just learned. But he handled a lot of draft day trades, a lot of roster building. He did a lot of kind of like that veteran free agent signings. He handled a lot of those, maybe the back end of the roster. So I think he's going to come in with a lot of experience, but also some much needed youth that the Giants need. It's been
Sure.
such a kind of old franchise. It's felt like the just the like Dave Gettleman. I feel like perfectly uh, showed what the Giants just felt like. I guess if that makes any sense. So
Okay.
old school with a lot of things, and play calling showed that, coaching showed that. I mean, just kind of everything felt that way. So it really is bringing over some nice youth, I think, which is big. Some new
I think like a
perspectives.
break from the conservative kind of
Exactly,
approach.
yeah. And then also analytics, bringing analytics over, which, supposedly Giants have used a little bit, but um, I don't think that there's really a lot of truth to it, to be honest with you. I think it just kind of, and Judge has said a
Some,
couple times that he goes by gut a lot of times, which we
well,
don't, I think.
yeah, right, right.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so new GM coming over from Buffalo, and he brings over his coach too, Brian Dable. So I know you have a little bit insight on him, correct?
Yeah, I mean, watching, the Bills is the team that, other than Cincinnati, the team I watch the most for sure. I see most of their games, and yeah, I think the biggest thing that makes this hire great, I think of all the coaching hires that, of all, I guess 9 of them at this point or so, I think the Giants made the best hire personally because you're giving, I mean, for starters, you're giving Jones that that coach that dealt with Josh Allen playing the similar, not necessarily that Josh Allen and Daniel Jones have the same exact skill set, but
They
you
do
and I
have a
talked about
similar
this
skill set, though.
before.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean the athletic ability, the ability to take that part of their skill set and to implement that into an offense, I think is important, and I think that Dable showed that he knows how to do that well. Josh Allen, a lot of the running quarterbacks, you'll see that play breaks down, they jet, and Josh Allen can do that. But there was a lot of nice design runs even in the game against Kansas City a few weeks ago. I mean, you see they hike it to him in the shotgun and pull the guard and pull the tackle, and he just got a train of 6'5" plus dudes running at
yep.
you, and that's a smart. That's smart. That's especially when you need 3-4 yards. I mean, that's tough for any defense to stop, and plus you got to account for that on any given play. Now, obviously Jones, he's not quite the size and stature that Allen is, but
Yeah, he's probably got similar height, I bet, but he's not built like Josh Allen.
right,
Josh Allen's
he's
more
not
muscle,
Wyoming
more
bred.
solid. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think that I can see some similarities there, and I can see that maybe the Giants view that as a pathway to, if they're looking, that they're the hope is, obviously you don't want to give up on Jones, but the hope is that that's you can transform him into anything like what Josh Allen has become. And in the beginning of their careers, as I told you, before we started this, um, Allen and Jones, both the first 2 years of their careers, very turnover prone, turnover heavy, trying to make too much happen when plays break down. And sometimes it was great, but other times you get knocked from behind and fumble. And other times, Josh Allen, especially, throwing off his back foot. And, he's got a cannon, but he's trying to throw it running backward, throwing off his back foot 40 yards. That's just no fan or coach wants him throwing that ball. And he's adapted. He's changed that behavior, and I think that Dable's got to be a big part of that. Is as much as Allen, in his fourth year, is gonna learn and continue to grow as a quarterback. I mean, having that offensive coordinator that's in your ear, that's with you every day at practice, telling you how you need to adjust your game to be great. I think that that's going to be a big help to Jones, and even beyond. If things don't work out with Jones, no matter who else comes in there, I'm sure they'll probably end up with a quarterback with a somewhat similar skill set. I doubt they're going to draft a statue back there.
Yeah, it's
Going
not today's
forward.
NFL anymore. I feel
No,
like.
yeah. So it's a good hire because I feel like Dable fits today's NFL quarterback and today's NFL pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. One of the biggest things I liked about it, and obviously you see the track record, you see, his work with Josh Allen, you see, last year he basically had the Chargers job locked up until what's his name came in.
Staley.
Yep, Staley came in and kind of blew him away. So you see that other teams like him at least, and he's had offensive success. And it sounds like too he's willing to build an offense around what someone is successful at doing. And my point
Yeah.
with that is, day one when he came into the building, Daniel Jones is one of the few players there, which that just shows kind of how Jones is. Which you're a quarterback in the NFL, maybe that's somewhat expected, I guess, if you will. But don't mind me burping here.
No, I did it at the same time.
But one of the things that I thought was really cool that was reported was, Jones had a conversation with Dable and pretty much said, "Hey, what do you want me to work on? What plays do you want me to start learning? What can I do?" And as a good offensive coach or coordinator or head coach should say, Dable said, "No, you give me a list of like 5, 10, 15, 20 plays that you really like, that you feel really comfortable running, that we can build an offense around." So I just think it's and maybe that's common. You know what I mean? Maybe that's just
Sure.
common. That's what a good NFL coordinator or head coach or play caller is going to do. But I feel like we haven't had that, man. It feels like Shermer was a decent offensive coordinator. I won't say that he wasn't, but he was lacking in a lot of other areas, and I don't think he had the staff around him to be successful with only focusing on the offense. But it's just exciting to see, a coach come in that already has a pretty good offensive mind, willing to come in and adapt. Like he's not saying this is my offense, this is my system. You're going to learn my system, or you're not going to be the quarterback here. He's willing to, kind of mold his offense around what Daniel Jones does good. And I'm not sitting here saying that Daniel Jones is going to be amazing and he's going to have this bounce back year and yada yada. But it at least shows that if he's healthy and he can learn, kind of learn the offense and succeed in what Dable wants him to do and they can kind of mesh good together, that there's at least hope. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it
So,
sounds like you're pretty much. He seems like the anti Matt Nagy with Justin Fields. It's like Matt Nagy wouldn't change his offense. Justin
yep.
Fields had to adapt to it, and he's a totally different quarterback than Andy Dalton, and or well, even Trubisky before that. But yeah, I think that I also heard. I think Stephon Diggs after Dable was hired said something like, he's a great guy. He's like he feels like he's friendly with you, but he does it in a way that like it lets you know that he's still serious about it. Like there's a lot of coaches who can try to be really friendly with the players, and you might lose respect for him with that. But Diggs had nothing but respect for him, so that's pretty good sign because he's obviously a veteran and been in the league, been with a lot of coaches. Well, actually not a lot of coaches himself, but yeah, I mean.
Yeah, Dable to me was the number one choice. I think that Joe Sheen had him in his headlights right from the start, knowing probably he was going to hire him, even though Brian Flores might not have to have heard that, but that's maybe a conversation for a different day.
Yeah, damn Belichick.
Texting like a middle school girl, LOL.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's like 80, so what do you expect?
Never mind. We're not even going to get into it because we're just not going to do it. Just not going to do it. I didn't want Flores regardless. I just didn't think that he fit what we were trying to do here. I didn't think he was enough of a change. I think he was very, very much similar to Joe Judge, and clearly that didn't work here. So there had to be some change. I still really, side note, I do still really like Joe Judge, and I think, man, I just think he kind of another thing where maybe I don't know. I don't know if Gettleman was the issue, if ownership was the issue, if I don't know. I just don't know what the issue was. It just everything was the issue, is what it feels like. But I hope I hope nothing but success for him. And it sounds like he's probably going back to the Patriots. I think is the last thing I heard, as an offensive assistant, which I find kind of interesting. But that's neither here nor there. So we'll get into the next hire, and I don't know how much you know about this guy, but we hired our offensive coordinator is Mike Kafka, who came over from the Kansas City Chiefs. He was Patrick Mahomes' quarterback coach, so he is the new OC. And what it sounds like, at least so far, is Dable probably will be still calling plays, but obviously you got to love having that guy to be the OC and work with Daniel Jones and hopefully help develop him. So
is Kafka? This is the quarterback from Northwestern. Is that who this is? Man, I'm trying to remember. Mike Kafka. That sounds right.
The name does ring a bell, and I keep thinking.
I'm a Big Ten. I'm a Big Ten, football fan, and I'm pretty sure he was the quarterback for Northwestern, and they ran an up-tempo, spread style offense. So if that,
I'm googling it, so we'll find out in a second here.
It's just weird because he graduated only feels like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, he's young. He's actually 30. He's 34 years old. So he's a year younger than I am. So Mike Kafka was drafted in Northwestern. Yep, with fourth round by the Philadelphia Eagles in 2010.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess it was more than 6 years ago. Jeez, time is flying. But
I'm getting old, man.
Yeah. I think that I mean, again, I can't speak to his professional career, but I know the offense he played in was some of Northwestern's best offense in the past 20 some years. Very spread offense, very quick, and I mean that might work with the offensive weapons that the Giants do have. I mean anything like that gives you a little edge. I think between that probably meshes pretty well with Dable too. So.
Yeah, you look at Patrick Mahomes and you look at Josh Allen, and you see a lot of similarities in each of their games. And think that like if they could just mold the quarterback between the two of those,
Well, yeah,
that'd be really nice. Now,
yeah,
obviously, as many people had to point out, the Giants are bringing Josh Allen to the Giants, and they're not bringing Patrick Mahomes to the Giants. Yes, we know that, but it's two good offensive minds. It seems like that have had success working with prominent quarterbacks. That I'm excited about it. I definitely don't know a lot about Kafka either. I won't sit here and say, hey, this is what he does and this is what works and yada yada. But you got to go off experience. He's working with Mahomes. He's working with Andy Reid every day. Their offensive coordinator there as well. So what's his name? I can't even think of his name off.
the enemy.
The enemy. Yep. Guy who I guess probably will never get a head coaching job. Granted, he has a lot of other baggage with him as well too. I think if you know anything about that, but
I don't, but I'll have to Google it.
yeah, he has a lot of he has a checkered past. I guess we'll just leave it at that. And then throw in the fact that from everything I've heard, he's horrible when he interviews. Like he's not a good interviewer, and I guess that kind of really worries these GMs and owners about his ability to lead men.
Hmm.
But that's a different topic for a different day. Anything else you want to add about Kafka, or we'll just kind of get into the rest here?
No, we can keep going.
Okay. So next hires were Bobby Johnson, who's the offensive line coach for the Bills, now Giants offensive line coach. My biggest thing with that is their offensive line's good. They're definitely decent, and they've done a good job too finding some players that maybe were cast off for other teams' vets, and we're able to plug them in and kind of make that Bills offensive line cohesive. Now, I don't know a lot about him either, but that there's already, they already have a relationship with Shine, with Sheen, with Daboll, with a lot of the Bills people that the Giants now have. So definitely happy about that. And they also brought over Shea Tierney, who was the assistant quarterback coach with the Bills, and now he's the Giants quarterback coach. So a lot of
yeah. I mean, the thing about that's interesting that I guess I never really thought of, but when you get into these coaches, assistant coaches, and everything, you can have disagreements. You can have people who might not see eye to eye, but the fact that these guys were all working together and are now coming to work together again is probably going to make it easier for them to, follow, oh, this is what coach wants, this is what assistant coach wants, on down the line. I think that probably is going to make that process easier for them. Their relationship is at least going to be good right from the beginning.
Yeah, and it's kind of like stability in a sense where yes, you're bringing in a whole new system, you're bringing in everything new to a brand new team, but the coaches are already, they know each other, and,
right.
and they already have a working relationship, and I think that'll definitely help. Last really offensive hire wise that we'll kind of talk about is Andy Bischoff, which I'm not sure if I'm even pronouncing that right, but he was the tight ends coach for the Texans. But he was also the tight ends coach for the Ravens, and he worked pretty heavily with Mark Andrews, which I'm pretty excited about that.
Sure.
Now, I don't know what we have right now at tight end. I'm kind of assuming Evan Ingram's going to be gone, but that kind of makes you think that maybe we can find like a late round gem that that can maybe mold into like a Mark Andrews type. So
yeah. I mean, that's another exciting hire, to be honest.
Yep. Last, that we'll get into with the Giants here, and then maybe we'll talk about the Bengals a little bit. Last hire that we've had was Wink Martindale as our defensive coordinator. We let Patrick Graham, I wouldn't say we let him go, but we gave him the right to explore another job, but let him know that if he was going to stay, he would be our defensive coordinator. He did end up accepting a job. Who did he go to? Did he go to the Raiders, right?
I do not know.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm blanking on this. I literally was just looking at this. I'm pretty sure he went to the Raiders, and let's just double check that while I have a moment. But he took the same position, with the Raiders. Yep, he's a defensive coordinator for the Raiders. Why he went there, I don't really know. It seems kind of like a weird change, but obviously there's probably relationships with McDaniels and maybe some bitterness, I guess, with the Giants with firing Judge. I'm not sure. But he did have the ability to stay and kind of build off the success he's had. I was really interested in that because I really wanted to see the defense without Judge's fingers in it. I wanted to see if it would stay conservative and
Right.
kind of that covered too soft shell, or would he really go back to what he was supposed to be, which was like an attacking, man to man tight defense, bringing pressure all over the place. We just never did it. So I was
Right.
really interested in that, but obviously we brought over Wink Martindale. Supposedly he's bringing Rob Ryan with him. Any thoughts on that?
No, I guess not.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
the thing with that hire, it was kind of they had a mutual release, I guess, with the Ravens. So I don't really know what happened there. But the Ravens always had a good defense.
sure.
Hit you in the mouth. Um, a lot of experience there, and he was up for a head coaching position a couple times. I think he may have actually interviewed with the Giants before Judge got hired. I could be wrong on that, but whatever. A lot of experience there, some familiarity with Dable, I believe. And then you bring over like Rob Ryan too, who I don't know what he's going to do. Maybe he'll be like a defensive assistant, or maybe he'll coach linebackers or something like that. But that's one thing that excites me, that we have, kind of this offensive mind in Dable, and then we have Wink Martindale, who has a lot of experience already as a defensive coordinator, and I think he can really kind of take over the defense and make it his own, and hopefully, keep building off the success that Patrick Graham had and get better.
Yeah, I mean, Martindale definitely. All the Ravens very disciplined too
Mm-hmm.
is another thing that will be good to bring over. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of teams in the past couple weeks, like the Raiders were the most penalized team, and I remember when
The
Cincinnati was
Raiders,
playing them, that was
Dallas,
brought up.
and
Yeah, and just like that's just stuff it just kills you for no reason. So having a guy who is good at crafting defenses that stay disciplined is going to be helpful.
yeah. Cool, man. Well, let's get off the Giants topic a little. Obviously, I could talk all day about the Giants, and definitely have high hopes for everything kind of moving forward. I think we're headed in the right direction. But let's talk about the Super Bowl.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. So obviously, we have the Rams against the Bengals, and I guess the first thing I'll bring up, because I find this kind of interesting, there's a couple ex Giants on the Bengals, and I kind of want to get your take on them, and do you have any opinions on these players? And let's do it this way: your first impression, or like even your first thought that comes to your head, and let me know what you think.
Okay.
Okay, it's gonna be weird. Don't mind it. I know I'm kind of throwing a curveball at you here,
All right.
and really, there's only two that I want to do this with, and you probably know who they are. But we'll start off with B.J. Hill.
Um, I mean, well, he had a great play in the last game.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he's been disruptive. And I think especially with Ogunjobi going down for the remainder of the year, having a guy that can just be disruptive inside, I guess, for lack of a better word, because you said first word, first thought. Yeah, I mean, he's done what he's been asked to. I mean, I think in that the second half of that Kansas City game, when we were just bringing three a lot, we're cycling guys in and out, because when you only got three guys pressuring, they're going to get tired after Mahomes is sitting there for 3-4 seconds, and you got five linemen or whatever pushing them out. But yeah, I mean, he's been energetic, and just it's nice to have a guy like that along with Reader and Ogunjobi and stuff, just being disruptive. That's
Yeah.
the word. That's the word.
Hey, it's a good word. So okay, next we'll say Eli Apple.
Yeah. So Apple, I'm gonna go with opportunistic. I think I knew he was coming.
Yeah.
So there's been some times throughout the year that Eli Apple has done Eli Apple things, as I'm sure you know.
Oh yeah.
But he also, he's made some great plays for us as well. Mainly getting some interceptions toward the second half of the year, and just kind of him and Hilton and Awuzie, who are all three weren't on the team. Well, actually, Awuzie and Hilton were ads this past season.
Yeah, Uzio came from Dallas and Hilton
Dallas,
came
yeah.
from Pittsburgh, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so they've both, all three of them have been good at getting turnovers, good at making big plays. Sometimes, other than Awuzie has been very good overall. From my at least recollection from watching the games, I do a deep dive on film or anything, but from watching the games, it seems like he's just always at least where he needs to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes with Hilton and Apple, it's they get out of position, but they both have made plays that have helped us obviously get here.
Yeah.
Hilton against Tennessee, popping the ball up in the air and getting that interception when Tennessee had a lot of momentum and was going to score.
Yep.
So I mean, definitely opportunistic and Stafford, while he's no spring chicken, he's prone to making some dumb passes, and you never know. I could certainly see Eli Apple getting an interception in the Super Bowl. How's that sound? What's that?
Is that a prediction?
No, I'm not going to go that bold. I will say that one of Hilton, Awuzie, or Apple, I'll go with that bold one. I can see one of them picking them off.
Okay. Stafford sometimes just does random weird things where you're like, what is, like, kind of like Eli used to do. There was always like a play where Eli, we just be like, what are you doing? And I feel like Stafford has one of those plays a game. And if a defense can make a play on it, then.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing is that, as a Bengals fan, I'm pretty surprised at how well our defense has actually caught interceptions. We've had a lot of balls that pop up in the air. And again, my dad's a Bills fan, and he's talked about this for years. If you throw a pass against the Bills and it pops up in the air or something, they're catching it. Their defensive backs are just always catching the ball for some reason. And for years, the Bengals, like most teams, their defensive players just sometimes had stone hands. It just happened.
Yep.
But they're making the plays during at least certainly this postseason run, and hopefully that continues.
Yeah. So, okay, two more names here for you. And I don't honestly know if these guys are really having much of a role right now. So you might not even know who they are. I don't know. But we'll say Chris Myrick, who's a tight end. He was with the Giants for a little while this year, but he's on your roster now.
Do you know when
he Uzama thing or?
Yeah, it might be, because certainly like Uzama and Sample are the main tight ends that we have used.
And you have Thaddeus Moss, I think, in your roster too, right? Still.
Yeah, and that I feel like only really Uzama and Sample you're gonna hear their names doing much, because anyone else that comes in is mainly gonna be for blocking purposes, really. Because Uzama he's actually turned out to be a pretty good tight end, especially after the catch. Throughout this year, I mean, he's had ups and downs. A lot of games he's like 2 catches for 15 yards or whatever. But when he does get the ball and has any bit of space, he's a tight end. He's hard to bring down. But I'm not sure about that guy, to be honest.
Right,
might be just because the injury.
Honestly, he might have only been on the roster for a little bit, or maybe he just got signed, I should say. Not really sure. Last one is Michael Thomas, safety.
Okay, so we have 2 Michael Thomases then.
Wide receiver 2?
Yeah. It's actually a funny story about that is in the off season, my dad calls me up or whatever. He's like, "Oh, I see the Bengals." I think he said re-signed Michael Thomas, and our Michael Thomas offensively, I think goes by Mike Thomas, and maybe it's for this reason. But and I was like, Michael Thomas, like of the Saints, and obviously that would have been a pretty terrible signing for this year because he didn't play. But safety Michael Thomas. I know he's been in some games. I don't think he's made any big plays that I can recall. But like I said, the other defensive backs have all been just making some pretty opportunistic and big plays. So it's possible that if safety, I mean, Von Bell and Jesse Bates have both been phenomenal.
They have been too. Yeah,
I feel like if they like redid the all pro team, one if not both of them might be at least in consideration. I mean, I'm sure they're in consideration, but they've both and we're talking guarding Kelsey, guarding Kittle. I mean, they did a terrible job against Kittle like 6 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago, whenever that was. But they held Kelsey pretty well, and I'm trying to. I mean, Waller, um, only recently too. So
Yeah.
they usually have one of them guarding, these great tight ends. Other than that, they're out there, and I believe on that interception that Mahomes threw in overtime, I think pretty sure it was Bates that tipped the ball, and it was Bell that had the interception. So both of them were in on that play, if I recall correctly. I know Bell had the interception, but yeah. So I mean, any extra safety help is great, but the two of them have been playing so well that Thomas, I'm just not sure has been in a ton.
He probably hasn't, and even with the Giants, I think he kind of like started and when we kind of got like some younger guys involved and stuff, he kind of started taking a back seat. He was more of like a character guy, I think, like a good locker room guy. But yeah, another one that I wasn't really even sure like what his role was, with the team. So I'm throwing some tough ones at you, so I apologize.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fine.
last
Well, yes,
player,
I mean,
last
go ahead.
player I want to ask you about before we really kind of get into the game is Logan Wilson, linebacker out of Wyoming. He was a guy, for the Giants that I really wanted in that 2020 draft. Obviously, we didn't take him. Any insights on him? How's he been for you guys? And kind of how has he meshed into that defense? Because I think he's playing a pretty big role now, right?
Oh yeah, I love him.
Yeah,
He's awesome.
he's a player to love. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, he's just an everywhere type of linebacker, and I cannot recall. I mean, we had another everywhere type of linebacker like 6 7 years ago, Vontez Perfect,
Oh yeah.
but he did not adapt to the league. I can't recall like one personal foul or one really bad play that Wilson's had. He really has been the glue for our linebackers as far as I'm concerned, and yeah, I mean, he had that tipped interception against the Titans, and to get us the ball back and set McPherson up for the game winner. And yeah, he's been great. Definitely definitely missed out on that one for
Yeah.
you guys.
Yep. How impressive has McPherson been for you guys? Because I mean, he's just how he's come into the league is unprecedented. I feel like you just don't see that.
Yeah, the weirdest thing is that kickers in general are going to be, well, great kickers. They have their great moments, and then they sometimes have like lulls or bad
Hmm.
periods. And Mason Crosby is a perfect example of that. He's had a couple of them now. And McPherson in that game earlier this year against the Packers, he missed like 3 field goals, I want to say, between the last 2 minutes and overtime. That I mean, I think one of them was like 57, one was like 47 or something. So we're not talking cheapies here,
Yep.
but that was like the only time that it seemed like I was worried about him. And yeah, the playoffs, it's nice to see players playing with this type of swagger. Like kickers don't act like he's been acting, calling
No,
the
they
shot,
don't.
stuff like that. And he looks like he's like 16 or whatever. Like he has to get a ride to the stadium or
It's like
something.
him and Burrow could be like college roommates right now, or maybe
Yeah.
high school science partners or something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's great to have, a kicker that's just in the zone. And, you know, obviously the Super Bowl is the biggest stage, but, kicking those last two kicks to get us to the Super Bowl, those were everything too. It was all on the line. And he nailed those ones. So I feel pretty confident with him going into the Super Bowl for sure.
Yeah, so let's get into the actual game because I know we've really only been kind of talking about players. Um, you know, how unprecedented, I guess, was this run for you as a fan? And what do you? I feel like it's a tough game. It's a game where probably the Rams are favored. But what do you see? What do you see as like some things for the Bengals to take advantage of? Are there any strengths that you see that they can kind of exploit? And kind of just what would you attack? I guess.
Well, we've had the good news is being the underdog in this, and I think just overall people would definitely say that the Rams have a more talented roster, top to bottom.
Yeah.
And I think that having 2 weeks to prepare for that is actually really beneficial for us, because we know their strengths. We know Cooper Kupp offensively is, well, virtually unstoppable, and we know that Aaron Donald and Von Miller are going to get great pressure. We know, Ramsey's Ramsey. He's going to have his good plays, and fingers crossed, he's going to get beat maybe a time or two. But yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I most want out of this is I want us to, be smart about how we approach our offense. I think one of the biggest, arguments or biggest talking points of the game against Kansas City was early on. We just kept trying to run on first down, kept trying to run, and get 2 yards with Mixon. And Mixon is a guy. Actually, it reminds me much like Saquon. I feel like in the second half, it feels like when he's humming, it feels like he's a better running back than early on in the game, to me at least. And so the issue there is that our offense as a whole seems to be better in the second half, but I want us to go with some short passes would be my dream, for 3 reasons. I thought about this question quite a bit. Number one, it's the Super Bowl. I kind of want to get Burrow in rhythm with some easy throws. Just don't make it too complicated. Don't make him throwing into tight windows. Don't make him holding the ball long and throwing deep downfield, because they'll get after him. And we don't want the last thing you want is Burrow to take a hit early and, well, obviously get injured, but take a hit early and fumble, or just even, get that crowd riled up that Donald gets a sack on the first drive and it's like 3rd and 20 or something like that. That's the last thing that you want. So I think in a perfect world for me, I would send Chase deep quite a bit and make them have to play a little off and let Boyd and Higgins control the middle of that field and use Uzama if he's able to go, which sounds like he will be. But
yeah, it's kind of sounding like he will be. Yeah.
Yeah, like I just feel like we do have too many offensive weapons for them to stop them all. I know that. It's just a matter of, are we going to be smart enough on any given play to find the right guy? Because we're not going to have that much time with Donald and Miller coming in, and they got just great defensive front. So I would like to. So aside from getting Burrow in rhythm, the second thing is, early on in the game, if we're wasting energy from Miller and Donald, if they keep rushing and getting double teamed and getting to Burrow and the ball's already out, if that keeps happening over and over, they're going to get a little tired. I mean, they're great athletes, don't get me wrong, but every play, just hike, push, run, get your way through there, make, swim through and get there, and the ball's just out. And if that happens over and over, it's discouraging, especially if they're, caught and you're getting first downs and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the third thing, obviously, is if we are completing passes around 8 to 15 yards or so, they're going to start to probably creep up, and that's going to allow Chase for those deep balls. That's going to open that up. So I think the best way to attack them is to go those short passes, quick passes. But the thing I worry about is, McVay is a smart guy, and he knows Taylor well. And I guess I'm just worried about the chess match of McVay going, I think they're going to go with short passes.
Yeah.
So I'm not even going to bring a lot of pressure. They're going to think we are, but we're not. We're going to pull our guys back. And, anything like that, it's kind of like what we did to Mahomes 2 weeks ago. Kind of throws you off when there's extra defenders out there. And it, kind of messes with what you were planning on doing. So it's going to be interesting. But I would just hate for us either to run it up the middle a bunch of times and get a few yards, or try these long pass plays, play action plays really early and leave Burrow susceptible to getting hit.
Yeah.
You just don't. I don't want the momentum early for the Rams. I think, if we can go into the half with it being like a tie game or really close to, I think that we're probably going to win.
Yeah.
Because we play so much better in the second half. Now there's that stat that I guess McVay is like 40-1 when he's leading at the half or whatever. So I guess hopefully we're tied at the half.
So 2 things I'll say. And I just randomly thought about the second one, so I guess I'll lead with that one. This almost to me seems like a money ball versus spending money game. Like money ball being the Oakland A's, Cincinnati Bengals, who don't really have like a lot of superstars that they've gone after. They've kind of drafted the right way with Burrow and Chase and Logan Wilson and kind of all these players. And then you have the Rams who straight really haven't drafted anyone other than maybe Donald. But they've really gone after trades. They've gone after free agents. They've gone after quarterbacks. Like their whole roster just almost seems like bought. You know what I mean? Like they
Okay.
just keep pushing money into the future. Does it feel
Right.
that way to you, or am I just like way off based on that?
I mean, so yeah, I mean, I feel what you're saying because
Kind of
again,
random. Like no,
living in New York, obviously, that reminds me of the Yankees of the early 2000s and stuff
yeah,
like that. I get where you're coming from. The only difference, and this isn't meant to be a slight on the Rams, but the Yankees those years were winning like 100 games. They were winning World Series. The Rams were fourth in the NFC.
true.
They weren't the top. They weren't second. They weren't third. They were fourth. And if Arizona would have won their last game, they would have been fifth, and they would have been going to Arizona to play them. So, um, you know, they kind of limped to the finish line. And now OBJ, to go into former Giants there, I mean, he's recently been really playing well,
Yeah,
and
he
that's
has.
definitely a problem because Cup is like the other thing is having 2 weeks. Like I'm sick of Cooper Cup dominating. I want us to double team him. Just double team him. Make Stafford hike the ball, look at him, and go up. He's double teamed, and have to throw to someone else every play. Because I can say this now, and I probably will feel differently during the game. But if we lose because Van Jefferson scores 2 touchdowns, I would rather have that right now than Cup going off for 12 for 202 and 2 touchdowns
Yeah, when you know he's
because
the issue, and you got
yeah,
to hope
we
for a game
know
plan against that.
you got to stop Cup. And I know it's easier said than done, but it's just, first of all, I mean, Belichick will tell you this. You can stop him if you want to. It's just, you're going to leave other guys open. So,
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
yeah, so,
And then the other thing I was going to bring up here is to me, and maybe this is just my life and kind of how everything has gone with the Giants. It really almost has like an '07 Giants feel. Kind of
okay.
like the underdog team, the team that um, even throughout the whole playoffs, like no one really expected you guys to win. And he kind of just kept beating teams that really no one thought you were going to beat. And then, here you are against the Rams, who, yeah, okay, maybe they're not the number one team in the NFC, but they're still,
Yeah,
I feel like heavily
powerhouse.
favored.
Yeah,
It's
for
not the
sure.
New England Patriots of '07, obviously,
Right.
or anything like that, but it just still has that same feel, kind of like the underdog, the young quarterback at the time, and kind of this young team. Uh, Not a bunch of like high price free agent. I don't know. That's just kind of
Yeah.
feel I get from it. Does that feel like that to you?
Yeah, I mean, I meant to mention that like earlier is, yeah, it does it, like just like with the
David
Giants.
Goliath.
Yeah, it's that kind of idea of you just need to get in the playoffs and anything can happen. And I mean, it sounds cliche or whatever, but we, even though we were the 4 seed, it's kind of like, I think everyone thought Buffalo or Kansas City, whoever's winning that game. And I feel like a lot of people probably feel like they wanted that to go to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Even if if we hadn't been winning, if we hadn't made the playoffs or whatever, I would have loved to see Buffalo, Kansas City to decide. I would have been rooting for Buffalo, but and nothing against Kansas City. It's just they've been there twice in a row or whatever. So
Same. Yeah. I would have been
yeah,
doing the
I'd
same
like to
thing.
see new blood. And plus,
And Mahomes'
we're
brother is rather annoying.
oh yeah, I don't know anything about that. I'm not a TikTok guy, and that's exactly
Me either,
why.
but
Like,
it still comes
oh
around.
God, yeah, no, the fact that I even have to hear about it once is infuriating. Like, who cares about some man dancing? Who has ever cared about a man dancing? I don't get it. Anyway, um, so yeah, I just it feels like, I think initially I thought the spread was going to be like 2.5, because the Rams haven't been dominating anybody really except for Arizona. They did, but the last 2 games came down to a field goal right toward the end of the game. So I figured 2.5 seems pretty good, especially because I figured that a lot of people might look at the Bengals having just beat Kansas City in Kansas City, and a lot of the public money, I'm sure, might have went on Cincinnati, but now considering it was, 4.5, it's up to now. Maybe that's even more so. I don't know. It feels to me like if the Rams are winning by 10, say, or even 10 or 11, toward the end of the game, it feels like the Bengals are going to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
Just I'm not sure that they'll, be able to surmount the whole comeback, but yeah, it feels like it's going to be a close game, and both these teams have been winning by field goals the last 2 weeks. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened again. And I mean, if it comes down to that, I'm glad we have McPherson. Matt Gay looked a little rusty this past couple weeks. I mean, I feel like he totally botched a 50-yard, 54-yarder last week, and then the week before that, I think he shorted a 48-yard field goal, which is very bizarre.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Especially
really.
today's NFL.
Yeah, must have, I don't know, something weird going on there. But that's kind of like going into the Super Bowl. I mean, he's obviously an experienced kicker, so I don't necessarily think he's going to choke, but you never know. I mean, something like that, if he's going in with any lack of confidence in a game this important, if, game's on the line and he's got to kick a 50-yarder, I mean, I'd feel more confident with McPherson back there. That's all. So,
Yeah. So, for me looking at this game, it almost sounds cliche too, but I feel like the Rams are going to be overconfident. I think that, had you asked any Rams fans, which I don't know a lot of, but they have to be pretty happy they aren't playing, the Bills or the Kansas City
sure.
Chiefs.
Yeah, yeah.
So for me, as far as the Bengals, defense is playing well for the Bengals. I mean, you have to make a statement. You have to start off strong. You have to kind of punch them in the face a little bit, and kind of catch them off guard a little bit. Now it's obviously it's cliche, and maybe the Rams aren't taking anyone lightly, and yada yada, but I think that you want to be tied. You want to be up 3 or maybe down 3 at half. Somewhere around there. You want to keep it close. Kind of control the ball. Obviously, the short passes might help in that, and maybe that'll help open up the run game and maybe get a little bit of some deep shots to chase or something like that. But I think like a big key to this is really like starting off strong. And I could be wrong on this, but like has it been the Bengals have played a little bit better in the second half? Is that what you were saying earlier?
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable how much better they've played in the second half. I mean, I would assume if you took the whole league and looked at their second half scoring and subtracted their first half scoring, the Bengals would probably have one of the highest numbers because
Yeah.
they just seem to play a lot better in the second half. And and part of that I attribute to, and this is just me kind of speculating, but I've also noticed it a little bit. It feels to me like in the beginning of the games, Burrow takes more sacks. He's kind of feeling out the defense,
Yeah.
seeing where they're bringing pressures from, and then when it gets to be the second half, he's learned it, and that's why last week you saw, a week and a half ago or whatever, you saw him on a couple third downs like skirt out and get out of the pocket and move, and I mean he's not a great runner, especially after the surgery, but I mean he's also not like I don't know, Mac Jones or something
Fleet
like
of
that. Like
foot.
he used to be, before the injury last year. I mean, he was a pretty mobile guy, and his poise in the pocket and his ability to kind of sense that stuff and slide around it. I mean, I've heard commentators mention Brady's name in that as far as just pocket awareness and type of thing, and that's important, especially if you had a knee injury like that, because the last thing you want is some guy rolling on the ground and to hit you weird.
Hmm.
But he seems to mentally, he's got all the tools for sure. Um, and yeah, I can attribute that second half, success to the fact that I think he learns. He's like some kind of supercomputer. Like he takes all this data in and like goes, figures it out. It's like they are blitzing more on the left, and it's like he can kind of just tell stuff and figures it out. I don't know. But yeah, it's been exciting to watch him, even though, like I told you beforehand, I don't think he's played as good as people have kind of been talking about in these playoffs. He's made his fair share of plays, especially for again his first full year. But he is like 25 and he's experienced. So um, I'm glad he's just playing with confidence and swagger because as much as it worries me a little bit as far as like I'm always one of those people that I would rather have my team seem like an underdog and maybe fall a little short than seem like oh, we're the best, and then lose. Like that's
Yeah.
just demoralizing.
Yep.
So
Agreed.
this it feels like things are getting inflated a little bit for him recently. But that's my opinion. I think Burrow loves it. And I think he is actually getting more confident and playing better because of all the talk about it. So we'll see. But yeah.
So two more things here, and then we'll end this. I know we're going a little bit longer than anticipated. Not a huge deal, obviously, but
It's a Super
um,
Bowl.
hey, yeah. So beginning of the year, did you see this as a possibility? Did you think that this was going to happen? That you kind of had this run, and now you're in the Super Bowl? Um, and what were your realistic expectations for this year?
So before the season started, my before week one, my dad went to a casino, was placing some bets, and I wanted to put down 100 on the Bengals making the playoffs, and I believe it was 20-1, but unfortunately our casino didn't take just make the playoff bets. They had like make the Super Bowl or something,
Ah,
but that would have been a nice 2 grand there. But no, I mean, I definitely didn't see the Super Bowl as a possibility this early in Burrow's career, and especially the offensive line I knew wasn't great. They've actually played kind of worse than I thought they were going to. And then the defense was still kind of a question mark. I didn't think the defense was going to be bad, but I thought it would be middle of the road, and for the most part they were. But again, they've been pretty opportunistic, especially in the playoffs. Um, we benefited a lot from the Ravens having just so many injuries, especially in their secondary.
yep.
They just couldn't guard anyone. It might as well have been you and I out there trying to guard like Stephon Diggs or something like that. Like it was a joke for them. And then Cleveland, I'll give Mayfield credit for playing through what he's playing through, but he obviously was hurting his team being out there because
Yeah.
he couldn't do it. And then Roethlisberger, yeah, he's obviously was on his last legs. So I mean, we got pretty lucky with the division. We were supposed to have one of the better divisions, and it ended up being pretty mediocre. So that definitely helped. But yeah, I could see us beating the Raiders and beating the Titans. I could see both of those just because I knew Henry was coming back for his first game, and I knew, it was they probably weren't going to pound him 30 times in his first game back. But definitely didn't see us beating the Chiefs. Didn't or if it would have been the Bills. Either way, I mean, I figured we'd need another year to retool. And even if we would have lost against the Chiefs, I kind of feel like it was the good thing about a team like our situation is that our deficiency is so clear in the offensive line. Like it's good when you have one glaring weakness because now we can go address that. And in the off season, I'm hoping we spend money because we got 58 million in cap room, and we're not losing too many people. We got Boyd, Higgins, and Chase under contract for quite some time. Mixon under contract for quite some time. Burrow. So the whole offense is set. We just can address the line, and that's a good thing to at least know what your weakness is. But now, here we are in the Super Bowl, which yeah, definitely shocked for sure.
Last question, and this is the big one. Any predictions for the
Okay.
game?
Mm.
You don't
This
have
is
to
tough
answer it if
because
you
like
prefer
I,
not
I
to.
definitely have thoughts, but I'm one of those people who I don't want to jinx anything. I don't want my juju out there. Bad juju. I kind of think, I mean, usually Super Bowls are lower scoring than you expect. That's what they say. I've been looking at a lot of like the prop bets and stuff, and I'm not going to make any, but I'm hoping that my wife will, just so she'll kind of be more invested in the game. Like, oh, he's got 4 catches. It's something.
Woo.
It's something.
Yeah.
I I expect it to be pretty tough for both quarterbacks. I not that I don't think that either of them could get to like 300 yards or whatever, but I think both will have at least one turnover. Um, I think it might be higher scoring than than we expect. I originally, I like to guess spreads and over-unders and stuff, and I was thinking about what the over-under would have been before I looked at it, and I was thinking 27-23 sounds like what this game could be, and either team could win 27-23, and that's an over-under 50, which is what it started as, and it's gone down since then. And I think a lot of that is people being smart enough to know Super Bowls generally are lower scoring
Yeah.
than you expect, because the nerves hit early on. Quarter is more of a what the hell just happened, and then you really get into the games. So I'm gonna say, let's see,
I have a backup for you if you don't want
I'll
to
predict that
answer
Chase scores
that.
a touchdown. I'll go out there and say that.
Okay. So
I'll
my
just
back,
say that. I'll say that one. I'll say that I think both quarterbacks will have a turnover, and I think Chase will score a touchdown.
so my backup was going to be if it's a one score game, who's winning that? And if it's a two score game, who's winning that? That was going to be my backup.
Okay.
Does that help
I
her?
think if the sure. Oh yeah, that's this. Yeah, this is an easier one to answer, I think, because I think just logic would say that if it's a two-score game, the Rams are probably going to win. I think they have a good enough defense that if they're up by two scores with like 4 minutes left, they could still get pressure even without sending, even without blitzing, they could still get pressure and force Burrow into some tough throws and just turn over on downs or force an interception or something. And then they take over and just kind of run the clock out. That's a believable scenario. And if it's a one-score game, I don't know. I'm going to say Cincinnati because of McPherson. I can see this again coming down to a field goal. And the one thing that I've noticed over the past couple of games is that Zach Taylor has been pretty good at monitoring the clock, which is something that I do religiously. And as an example, Patrick Mahomes gets 13 seconds and can go 44 yards or whatever. That's obviously a ridiculous example, but the point is, great teams in those pressure situations can do more than you expect. So you want to give as little time as possible. Like the first time we played Kansas City, we had that weird, I don't know if you remember this, we had that weird drive at the end of the game where we had like first and goal from the 5, and we took off like 2 straight minutes of clock, just running and then running and then running, and then they had a penalty, and then we just kept running it all the way down because we didn't want to give Mahomes any seconds.
Yep.
And we got a field goal right at the end. And so I'm hoping that those clock management skills come in the end, and we can just make sure we have the ball last. Because if we have the ball last, and it's a game we could win if it's tied or we're down by 3 or whatever, I think we're going to win. I trust Burrow enough at that point. But if we have the ball last and we're down 14, obviously that's not going to matter. But I think that if it's a one-score game, I think that it'll probably be McPherson, kicking a field goal to win or something like that.
Nice.
But you never know. I mean, anything could happen. So
yeah. Hey man, well, thanks for joining me. Thanks for coming on. Any last minute remarks? Any closing statements for you?
No. This was awesome. I've wanted to do a podcast of any sort for a long time, whether it's me just ranting and doing like would you rather questions with my dad, because you know him, and if I ask weird would you rathers, like if I say anything about eating a booger to him, he's like, what the hell. And I just think having that recorded and having that for people's listening pleasure would be funny. But sports is obviously an easy one to talk about too, and I know your stuff, and I'm obviously not a Giants fan, but I root for them because I got no teams in the NFC, and I got a lot of Giants friends who are Giants fans. So I'm glad you had me on, and hopefully we can do another one of these, and I can have like a Super Bowl champion like fake ring or something I can get. I get some fake bling and maybe a new jersey or something. I can wear that on and be real obnoxious.
Hey, I'm all for it. Hey Scott, well thanks for coming on, man. It was a pleasure. Definitely enjoyed having you on, and part of the reason I wanted you on, not only the fact that you're a Bengals fan, but also because I know you're an NFL fan, and I know you love the game and you're knowledgeable. So, really appreciate you coming on, and we'll go from there, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for anyone who's still listening an hour and a half in. I probably
Yeah,
rambled quite a bit, but it is what it is, you know. Again, Bengals fan. I get to do this every 30 years, so and I'm 35, so this is the first time I've done it.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you sticking with us here and listening. We'll probably have another episode here maybe after the Super Bowl. Yeah, we'll go from there. Let's freaking go.